Hi, welcome to the Dynamic Duel podcast, where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in crossover battle simulations. I'm Marvelous Joe.
And I'm his twin brother, Johnny DC.
And in this episode, we will be reviewing Black Panther.
First big film of the year.
First big film of the year, first big review.
A great way to start off the year, too.
Yeah. I really liked this film. I'll just start off by saying that. I'll say that if you have not seen the film yet, don't listen to this episode yet. Go see the film because it is a spoiler review, and you don't want to spoil some things for yourself. I think it was quite a fascinating story, I think, and it contained just plot lines that you don't want spoiled for yourself if you haven't seen it yet. So go ahead and go watch the film, come back, listen to the review, because we're going to go pretty in depth, and it'll be a lot of fun to talk about, I think. So before we get into the review, though, and as always, you can check the chapter times in the episode description, we're going to go ahead and get into the news preview from the past week. There's not a whole lot of news. There's actually one news item, and it's kind of a stretch.
Yeah.
But it's we're going to discuss the Batman Ninja English dub.
Yeah,
it's a cartoon. It's a DC animated movie that's coming out early March. When is it coming out?
Late April for digital. We'll get into that.
Yeah, we'll get into that. And yeah, it should be a quick episode. So let's talk about the Node Prize. I want to give a big congratulations to Mr. Mark1684 from Twitter. Our last episode's question was, what's your favorite Marvel or DC superhero movie trailer? And that includes all of the trailers and teasers to have come out since ever.
The dawn of man.
Probably since, this Richard Donner Superman film. And Marks gave an answer that I thought was interesting because I didn't see it coming.
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily agreed with it because let's face it, I'm kind of biased against Marvel. But I thought he gave the best reason because a majority of people said, Deadpool 2 because it was funny, or,
Logan.
Logan because of
which was a great trailer.
Yeah. But a lot of them talked about the music, with Logan with the Hurt trailer, or Thor Ragnarok with Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, Led Zeppelin, immigrant song. Yeah,
but Mark1684 said that he would go with Iron Man 2 because they made D-level Whiplash into a convincing villain with that one. And I remembered that trailer. I remember the first Iron Man trailer that came out.
I think we were all stoked for that movie once that trailer came out.
Yeah,
because Iron Man 1 was such a huge hit. We didn't know yet at the time that Iron Man 2 was going to be subpar. And yeah, Whiplash in the comics was always this kind of weird BDSM looking kind of weirdo. But in this one, Mickey Rourke made him look like Mark's 1684 said, convincing.
I mean, yeah. Not only does before we even get to Whiplash though, the trailer is pretty energetic and it makes you want to see the film just from not necessarily him before Congress, but him landing on the showroom floor of the Stark Expo.
Yes.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, with the Shoot to Thrill song going on.
Yeah.
It was a really good trailer, I have to say. The thing that got me the most excited, though, was at the very end, even after the title card, they had this brief little stinger of Iron Man fighting alongside War Machine, and Iron Man was shooting his repulsor beams at the drones, and War Machine had his guns going, and I was just like, oh my gosh. This trailer is amazing. It's perfect. I was really looking forward to that film when it came out, and I was a little bit let down by that film, and we'll get into that when we get into the Iron Man 2 review eventually, whenever that happens.
Yeah, but I mean, and just to touch on what Mark1684 liked about it, it totally did set up Whiplash as a great villain. Not only does Mickey Rourke have an unbelievably good Russian accent in the trailer, but when he's creating the arc reactor, by this time you've seen the first film and you know what that means. Yeah. And it's oh shit.
Yeah. He's smart.
Yeah, the guy's a genius.
Yeah.
So, right out from the get-go, he's an intellectual rival for Tony Stark.
Yeah.
And that's all they needed to do is just show him creating an arc reactor.
And this was the first time that we also saw Black Widow.
That's right. Still not impressed.
I liked her appearance in this film. I thought that she was sufficiently badass. That hallway fight scene is pretty cool, I think. But congrats again to Mark1684 for giving our favorite answer for this question of the week. You win a No Prize that Jonathan will draw up for you and post to our social media accounts. If you want to go ahead and win a No Prize as well, go ahead and answer this episode's question of the week, which we'll get into later.
Congrats, Mark1684. You get the Black Panther illustration, which is the first time I've ever redone an illustration of a character.
That's right, because you've already drawn Black Panther for another no prize.
Right.
But this is like
it seemed fitting.
This is the
this
kinetic purple suit.
Yeah.
So
you'll have to see it
from the movie. It'll be cool. All right. So with that out of the way, let's get into the news.
So this technically isn't a Warner's animation film. It's
not?
No.
Oh.
It wasn't made by Warner Brothers. They're just, it's their character and they're distributing it.
Okay.
So this is like a legit Japanese product.
Well, I saw that it was written and directed by Japanese
filmmakers.
Names. Yeah.
And I know that those names like are super famous to people who are more familiar with anime than I am. I'm not that familiar.
Yeah.
I know like the guy who like did the character designs for Afro Samurai. I guess he did the character designs for these characters.
Oh, really?
And they look really cool.
They do. Yeah, you would think I would be more into anime because just love the animation style. It's so kinetic and well drawn, and when it's done well, it's the best animation out there,
hands down, for sure.
Yeah,
it's just like the timing of everything. The trailer itself starts off with the Joker in his Lord Joker.
Yeah, he's like a Japanese demon.
Yeah.
I
don't know what's going on. I actually don't think you see him until Batman goes back in time, because I guess in this film, like, it starts off in the present day, and then because of like some time traveling machine from Gorilla Grodd, Batman goes back in time. There's like a ton of villains in this film.
Yeah,
this
I
cartoon.
saw Bane. I think
I don't remember seeing
Catwoman.
Bane.
Yeah, it was like a big guy. He looked like a big sumo wrestler guy.
There's Joker. There's Harley Quinn. I remember seeing the Penguin. I think I saw Poison Ivy. I think she might have been the one with like pink hair. Anyway, it's just like there's a ton of. It looks like this is a pretty dense film. Not only do you have like a shit ton of villains, but like all the snippets of footage. Like it's hard to connect the dots story wise.
Yeah,
looks like it's gonna be a pretty long, pretty epic film.
What I should say, actually, real quick to interject, is that we don't usually comment on the Warner Brothers animation movies.
Oh, no, we don't. Yeah.
We haven't reviewed any of them, but I think that's going to be the plan going forward. So when this movie comes out, Batman Ninja, we are going to be reviewing it just because, frankly, DC doesn't have enough content to review. So there's so much Marvel stuff coming out to review between the Netflix shows and the movies that DC, needs. We need something to review for DC, and they don't have a huge back catalog of films either. So eventually we're going to catch up with those. So we decided we're definitely going to get into the DC animated films because those are actually fantastic films. I've seen a couple of them. I've seen the Red Hood one, and I've seen DC New Frontier. I really liked both of them. DC is just, they crush it with their animated films. So I'm also excited to see this one and review it because I know they put out good products. Yeah,
before we continue, I just want to say, I don't want your pity. And I'm not like your charity case, No, yeah, these I mean, I think Marvel has like almost 30 films.
Yeah.
Like in its collection. I mean, and is that including like all the like the X-Men films from Fox and stuff like that? Okay. Well, and they continue to put out like 4 films a year. DC only has like 1 or 2 films this year. I think there's like 32 films in the DC in Warner's animation DC sort of collection. Starting with Superman Doomsday. So yeah, that kind of puts us like on par with each other. So yeah, we'll definitely be reviewing these. I still regret not reviewing Killing Joke when that came into theaters.
Yeah, because that's right. It got a theatrical release. We should have gone to the theaters and reviewed it.
Yeah, but we'll make up for it starting with Batman Ninja.
Yeah.
Just to get back into the trailer. There's so many snippets. It's hard to capture everything, but like you see appearances from the Joker and Harley Quinn. The character designs of like Batman's allies. You see, it looks like Damian. I'm assuming it's Tim Drake as Red Robin. You see the Red Hood, Jason Todd, and Dick Grayson as Nightwing.
Catwoman.
You see Catwoman. They're all really cool.
They're pretty cool designs. I mean, they're a little embellished, but. And I don't know if they quite look like a really cool futuristic version of like feudal Japan.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I just like when Batman's talking about like the Batwing, the Batcycle, all these gadgets that he has and stuff like, he's like, I don't have any of those, but I have my mind and I have you guys. That's just cool. That's just good writing. I mean, I saw this trailer when it came out in Japanese, but I mean, obviously like there's a pretty broad translation here. Like, because I remember like when he's sipping tea in the English dub, he's saying like "I am ready" or something like that. But like in the Japanese trailer, he's saying something like "This is a perfect moment" or something like that.
Oh, that's weird.
It's you know.
Well, I've heard that fans always like subtitle versions more than subs versus dubs.
Yeah.
I don't really have a preference. If the dubbing is really bad, then I just can't stand dubs.
Yeah.
I like subtitles either way, though.
I typically watch films with subtitles on, even if they're in English.
Yeah.
But no, like the few anime films I have seen, like I'm a pretty big fan of like Neon Genesis Evangelion. Mm-hmm. The Japanese voices are way better, I think, than the English ones.
Yeah.
In my opinion. So yeah, maybe I agree with that. I don't. Oh, Bane, you're right. He's a sumo wrestler.
I told you.
Oh, that's so badass. Oh, that's awesome. I'm just scrubbing through the trailer right now. Yeah, that's really cool.
There's a part near the end of this trailer where it looks like Joker has some kind of mecha or something like that, which is kind of weird for the time frame.
Yeah.
It might be like steam powered or something, so it might be like a steampunk feudal Japan.
That'd be cool.
Which would be cool. That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
For sure. For sure. It comes out early, digitally, so we'll be reviewing it after that. It doesn't come out until like a few weeks later, I think, on Blu-ray. That's pretty much it. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to start and reviewing these animated features.
Yeah. I definitely haven't seen enough of them. Mainly because I'm jealous that Marvel doesn't do great animated films. But that kind of leads us into the question of the week. What is your favorite animated feature from Marvel or DC? I can't imagine it would be a Marvel film unless you're talking about something like Big Hero 6. But I do think that the upcoming Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse animated film for Marvel is going to be pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a game changer, honestly. Yeah. It looks like it's going to be like the most well-produced animated superhero comic book feature like ever.
Yeah. Well, and DC also has an animated feature coming out later this year with Teen Titans Go. So it's kind of like a big year for animated films. So we want to know what your favorite is. Go ahead and post your answer to our Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, or through email at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com. We will pick our favorite answer and draw that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize. If you don't know what a No Prize is, it was something that Marvel did back in a few decades ago where they would award someone who wrote in and pointed out like a mistake in one of their issues.
I think it was like for a while it was like a typo, then like it was a continuity error, or it started off as continuity, and then if you Google it, it's a thing. We do our own thing based off that thing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So I think with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into our review of Black Panther. T'Challa! What? T'Challa! Okay, so I'm really excited to talk about this movie. I've seen it twice now.
I've only seen it once.
Again, it's a spoiler review, so if you're skipping ahead to the review, make sure you go see the film before you listen to us talk about it and spoil everything for you. So, yeah. All right, so Black Panther, first time I saw it, the more I thought about the movie, the more I liked it. And the second time I saw it, the more I definitely knew that it's a 4.5-star film, just to get that out of the way right away. And we'll get into why. But more important than its quality, I think, the more I thought about it, was its message and what the film inspires in people. Now, this is rare for a superhero film, I think, except for maybe the exception being Wonder Woman from last year. Yeah. But this is, I think, what superhero films should be, inspiring. I mean, you'll always have your darker characters like the Punisher who are more character studies possibly than role models. But, superheroes can really encourage people to be the best they can be and encourage them to always try to do what is best for the world. And I think this movie succeeds at that more than any other superhero film ever.
Maybe. I don't think I went in with high expectations. I mean, I feel like a film is 5 stars if it exceeds my expectations, To me, I figured that this was going to be good just based off, like all the news and buzz I'd been hearing from critics and, from everyone else. I don't want to say I was disappointed, but there were definitely some things that I found lacking in a way. But overall, it was a really solid film. It leaves you thinking.
Yeah, I like I was feeling like this is an important film, and like not just for like the black community, although especially for them, but for all people. I think this is perhaps the most intelligent plot since Captain America: Civil War. I think, like that film, Black Panther central struggle is one that you can see both sides of. So it's more of like an ideological conflict than a moral one.
Absolutely.
Which makes it so fascinating to me. And it's a political conflict too. Like it has a lot to say regarding isolationism and nationalism versus world unity. And like one of the core struggles currently happening in America, obviously, is this nationalist movement that, you know, our president is certainly a part of. And then there's the comment T'Challa makes at the mid-credit scene, how the wise build bridges while fools build barriers. It totally felt relevant in these times, specifically in reference to the, like, you know, like the proposed Mexican border wall and stuff like that. I felt like this movie was relevant in a way that most superhero films aren't. And I think it's possibly the first Marvel film to actually kind of really mean something at the time of its release.
I definitely think it's the most relevant Marvel film. Most Marvel films to me are just, you know, like popcorn action flicks.
Yeah.
And I would say, like, to me, this movie wasn't a good action film. Like, I thought the few action scenes that it did have were kind of poorly edited, but it made up for it in the fact that this is like almost Game of Thrones, like Shakespeare type story.
That's kind of what I thought, yeah. Just with all the drama and everything going on. With the sins of the father aspect, the fight over the throne, T'Challa's defeat and comeback, and the moment when T'Challa was pleading with Killmonger that he was becoming the people he hated. It was all operatic, I think. That was the biggest strength of the film, was its dramatic story.
It had a lot of strengths. To me, I think the biggest strength was its cast.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And also, like, the cultural aspect of the film. It's so great when a film can so seamlessly celebrate a culture within a larger narrative. And, of course, Wakandan culture is fictional. But there was a lot of, you know, African influence here that I thought was pretty cool. It's uplifting not just for those that belong to the culture, but it instills this appreciation among those outside of it, and I certainly appreciated it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, when you and I were 15, we actually went to Kenya.
Oh, we did?
Now I'm talking to you. Yeah, we traveled to Kenya, and I mean, the scenic locations in Wakanda they were really beautiful. Really great scenery.
Yeah.
But I mean, the people and just seeing their like native dress and stuff, like, it totally took me back to when we went to Kenya.
Well, and when they were flying into Wakanda, it looked a lot like the Great Rift Valley area with the massive cliffs and everything like that.
Not just that, not just Kenya. Like, I used to live in South Korea. I taught English there for a year. And so when they went to Busan, I was like, oh, it's Busan. It's Busan. You know, and so, like, to me, this whole film felt like a globe-trotting, like, spy film.
Yeah, kind of like James Bond a little bit.
Yeah, totally.
In more ways than one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which we'll get into.
And I just really appreciated that fact. Like, there were so many things for me, at least, to connect to.
Yeah, I think those of African descent will see this film the way I, being of Hispanic descent, saw the film Coco, which was the animated Pixar film that came out last year. It's just, like, it hits you right in the feels when you see your heritage represented in such a positive way. And of course, again, you know, those are both fictional stories, but the effect is the same. Like, I feel like if I were of Scottish descent, Braveheart would just be, like, my favorite movie of all time. But I would think that, yeah, those of African descent would see this film the same way I appreciated Coco.
Perhaps. How many films are out there that are based around Africa? You know,
yeah.
So maybe.
All right, let's get into the characters. So T'Challa, I have to say T'Challa was probably one of the less charismatic characters on screen.
I think that says a lot about your film, though, where, like, you have a film with such a rich ensemble of characters where T'Challa, the protagonist, was, like, your least interesting character.
Yeah, that's kind of
speaking to the quality of the.
And it's not to say that he was
stuff.
Dull. It's just that, like, nearly every other character outshined him, from, like, Okoye and Killmonger and M'Baku and Claw, definitely. And I mean, it's not to say that Chadwick Boseman was horrible here. I mean, I don't think that at all. I think he's fantastic in the role, honestly. But you could say he's a casualty of the script because his character is still being developed. He's still figuring out who he is, going from this transition from prince to king. And I think because of that, his role suffers a little bit, and he feels kind of like tabula rasa, like blank slate, you know?
Yeah. He's definitely a novice. Like, he's definitely, like, reactionary.
He's a little green,
you know?
yeah.
This definitely isn't, like, your standard hero's journey film, you know?
No, because, well, the character was already established in Civil War.
So maybe you didn't need that.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought I was going to be able to compare this film a lot to Wonder Woman, because I know when that film came out, everyone was talking about how, progressive and stuff it is like that, you know, and people were making the same claims before this one. So I thought I was going to have more to compare to, but it's definitely its own thing. Again, it's not the hero's journey. It's something different. Again, to me, it's more like Game of Thrones.
It's slightly incomparable to any other superhero film that's come out.
Yeah.
But like, if you had to describe the character of T'Challa, how would you describe him?
That's a good question.
I mean, like, he's a great leader, obviously. He's a man who always tries to do the right thing, you know, very sensitive to the needs of his people and the role he and his nation will play in the modern world. But I personally found Black Panther much more interesting in the Civil War movie, where he was much more like the comics character.
He was angry.
Yeah, like the comics character, he single-mindedly and relentlessly pursues his goals and achieves them so brilliantly and so, like, completely. And there was a glimpse of that here when he chased Claw. And my favorite moment of T'Challa in this film was when he told Claw that every breath he took was mercy from him.
Yeah.
I was like, that's Black Panther. That's the Black Panther I know. And I hope that in future films we see a more confident and bold and interesting T'Challa, which I'm sure will happen once he has more experience on the throne. And I know Boseman can deliver once that happens. Like, I think the sequel to this is going to be even better than this film was.
Yeah, I agree. Like, even, you know, snippets that we've seen, like, in the trailers for Infinity War, where he's like, and get this man a shield. Like, I almost feel like he has, like, more passion in that scene than he did in a lot of scenes in this film. And every time I see that trailer, I always just want to interject, like, and get this man a motherfucking shield. Just the way he delivers the line. I don't know.
It's pretty forceful.
Yeah.
Which is great. Like, it seems more along the lines with his Civil War portrayal.
You know, one thing I'm pretty jealous of Marvel is the fact
That's
that...
right.
Fuck off. Is that they've been able to get away with really getting people to really like these somewhat bland characters. And when I say bland characters, I mean, like, they say it's really hard for people to write Superman because, you know, he's such like a goody two shoes. And I know they've run into problems with that in the past with characters like Cyclops in the X-Men films. Right. They never know what to do with Cyclops. You know, so they usually end up like killing him off, or, you know, just not really using the character because he's not, or could be perceived as not an interesting character.
Right.
But you could say the same thing about like Captain America. And they made 3 really good Captain America films, you know? And in a sense, like, this may be like a bland interpretation of T'Challa, but it still works. It still works.
Yeah, definitely. You're right. He is bland, kind of in the same way that Steve Rogers is bland. But despite their blandness, they're never in bland movies. They know how to at least use the character to fit the larger narrative in an interesting way. Yeah. And I think T'Challa's journey here, his coronation and his defeat and his comeback and everything like that, I thought it was a great situation to put a character who is still kind of figuring out who he's trying to be.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So Eric Killmonger, hands down, my personal favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe villain yet. I can't imagine that he'd be out of anybody's top 5 Marvel villains.
Even more than Loki?
Yeah, he ranks right up there with Loki and the Winter Soldier and Vulture. His motivations are sound, though destructive. He was sufficiently brutal and threatening. He's just a vicious dude.
He was definitely sympathetic.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say he's like one of my favorite villains of all time. You know, everyone was saying, oh, you know, he took inspiration from like Heath Ledger's Joker. I don't think he was nearly as good as that. But he was still a good villain.
He was. I wouldn't compare anybody to Heath Ledger's Joker.
You know who he really reminded me of? Like, the whole time I was watching the film, because I'm not too familiar with Killmonger. When I was watching the film and just, like, learning about Eric Killmonger along with the rest of the audience, I was like, this is fucking Black Manta.
Really?
Yeah. You know, his dad dies, you know, or his dad is killed by a hero, then, like, his whole life is basically just dedicated to hate.
Well, that's N'Jadaku's arc in the comics as well.
Who?
That's his real name. Killmonger's real name was N'Jadaku. But his family was exiled for working with Claude during Claude's invasion of Wakanda. And so he comes back, develops this hatred for Black Panther in Wakanda. So he comes back to try to take the throne. So the two characters, Black Manta and Killmonger, they do have similar setups.
It's gonna be really interesting to see how similar their Black Manta will be, like arc wise.
Yeah.
In the Aquaman film, I wonder how many people are gonna make those comparisons, which would kind of suck, honestly.
Because Killmonger came first.
Well, Black Manta came first.
I'm talking about in the movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though Black Manta came first and his character and stuff was already established.
Yeah, well, maybe if
comics.
DC, got
Fuck
on.
off.
If they started producing more movies sooner,
I hate you.
those comparisons wouldn't be made. There was some real emotion behind Michael B. Jordan's performance. Those moments where he revisits his father on the ancestral plane after taking the heart-shaped herb, and when he screams at Black Panther, like in the final fight, how everything was taken from him, and especially his dying words. Those moments all held like megaton emotional weight for me. I think Michael B. Jordan absolutely nailed this role. And to be honest, his performance was the thing I was most concerned about, judging from the trailers. Because like there was a lot of, I want the throne, and just like these weird moments where it looked like his performance didn't have any subtlety to it. Like, burn it all. But he ended up being a richly complex character. And I think it's really too bad that they killed him off already.
Yeah, so that's one of my gripes with this film was that you had two really good villains in this film. You had Claw.
Yeah.
Andy Serkis, we'll get on his character later, but I thought he did a really good job. Michael B. Jordan was one of the best Marvel villains also. And you killed them both.
Yeah. I mean, they could always say that they healed Killmonger and like tried to rehabilitate him, but I think that would be doing the character a disservice, especially the way he went out. It was a powerful scene, and maybe it would kind of take away from that.
Maybe.
But let's get into Claw. Andy Serkis is my freaking hero. Like, I want him to be the villain for every movie, Marvel or not. He has so much freaking fun here. It's insane. Like, I hope they didn't pay him. He just had too much fun.
What?
There's no other character I've ever seen on film that even compares to how much fun he was having.
He's just a fantastic actor. I mean, it goes to show how talented he is when he's not doing mocap. He's more than just mocap.
Oh yeah, the guy is phenomenal. He's a spot on technical genius actor and just blew me away here. Like everything he said, every movement he made was just pure gold. And yeah, it is a tragedy that they killed him off, especially since he's like one of Black Panther's greatest villains.
Yeah. Why do you think they had Killmonger kill him or even help him
to service the story? Oh,
well, why even help him if you're just going to kill him?
That's one of the questions that I had. I think he got in close to Claw in order to kill him. I think. But he didn't have to go through all. Yeah, he didn't have to go through all that to kill him.
That was weird. I thought it was
almost like he made the decision to kill Claw once Claw said that he wasn't going to take him to Wakanda. Like it was possible that he was trying to get his trust so that he would fly him to Wakanda, attack him at that point, and take him to Wakanda. But then when he said no, it was like his plan changed and he knew he had to take him out right then and there.
Maybe.
But then again, like, why the whole Vibranium X thing and like stuff like that? Like,
exactly.
I guess it was just to build trust so that he would actually end up in a plane in Africa with him or something. I don't know. It's an interesting.
Was his plan always to deliver Claw?
I think because he knew that Claw was an enemy of Wakanda and he knew that bagging him would be a sufficient trophy to grant an audience with the king, I believe.
Honestly though, like you have proof that you're Wakandan. Why wouldn't you just go to Wakanda and say, hey, here's the proof. I have this ring.
But it wasn't just to show that he was Wakandan and that he had this. It was also to humiliate Black Panther by showing that he could do something that T'Challa was not able to do. I think that was the plan. So let's move on to Nakia. Now, I haven't seen much of Lupita Nyong'o outside of this film, so I wasn't sure what to expect from Nakia. I thought, leading up to this movie, I thought she was going to reveal herself as a traitor to the Wakandan throne and end up becoming Malice, like she does in the comics.
What?
Especially, yeah, she turns into a bad guy. I told you this whole story.
Wasn't she? She's one of the Dora Milaje.
Yeah, in the comic book, she was one of the Dora Milaje, and in this one, she wasn't. But yeah, in the comics, she turned against Black Panther because he didn't return her affection, and so she kind of became a villain for him.
That's right.
But in this movie, she didn't do that. So I was really thrown off. It was like a nice twist to me that she remained the strong, loyal character that she did. And it was a great role, I think. She, Okoye, and Shuri were just they were just as much the heroes of this film as T'Challa was, I think, especially with their plan to fight Killmonger by bringing the heart-shaped herb to M'Baku in this end of the second act of this film. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just a big fan. I liked her role.
Yeah.
Okoye, I really love Denai Guerrera. I think that's how you pronounce her last name.
She's a fantastic sidekick, like in this film.
Isn't she?
Not even a sidekick. She's just a badass.
Yeah, she's great in Walking Dead, from what I've seen of her in that show, and she was just as fierce here. Though, she had some good comedic timing too. I thought, like, I didn't think her deadpan coldness could be so funny. Like when she told T'Challa that if Ross touched him again, she was gonna impale him on the desk. Like, it doesn't sound funny, but it was in the movie.
I wonder what language they were speaking. I wonder if it was a made-up language or if it was like Swahili.
I don't know. But I think she did a great job, and I think she had a lot of fun with the character too, even in the emotional moments, such as when like she was telling Nakia that she is loyal to the throne, not to the king.
And that like, okay, so that...
Or not to T'Challa, I should say.
That moment specifically is what like really made me feel like how authentic this film was. Because just when I've done like traveling, like English is like a really complicated language. We have so many words. We have like 1 million words compared to something like Spanish that has 250,000. Like they have a quarter of the words that we have, And so like, when I'm watching Korean movies and stuff like that, what's written in the subtitles is often much more complicated than what they're actually saying, because I could recognize sometimes what they're saying. Mm-hmm. And just Nakia's line to Okoye, when Okoye says like, I serve
my country,
and Nakia responds like, and I'm going to save my country. It was said so simply, and yet it was so impactful.
Yeah.
And it just made me think of like all those times where, you could say something sometimes so powerful and so true with fewer words.
It's just more profound that way.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So let's get into Shuri. Great character. Letitia Wright was also great comic relief, especially in like the gadget scene. She reminded me of Q from the 007 movies.
Oh, for sure.
You could tell she had a lot of fun with her role as well. She was given some of the best lines, like when she told Ross, "Don't scare me like that, colonizer." I thought that was hilarious. I laughed my ass off. I wasn't sure how her and Boseman's chemistry would be as brother and sister, but having a sister myself, it was pretty accurate, I thought. The playful banter and like the complaining, like when she yelled at him when he kicked her mannequin across the room, or when he told her to delete the footage of him getting blasted across the lab. It's not something that you often get to explore in a superhero story like this, because most superheroes are usually like tortured loners. So it's nice to get a change of pace to see scenes like that.
You would never see Batman joking that way with, Lucius Fox.
Right, exactly. I love how
it's charming. It's super charming. Her character was super charming.
Definitely. Yeah,
like every time she was on screen, whether she was joking about like, how let's hurry up and wrap this ceremony up, and stuff like that, or
this corset is tight,
just like the giggle she gives when like she realizes that the VR like car has been activated in her lab, she gets to help out.
Yeah,
it's cool. She's a great character.
Yeah. I like the line that she had with T'Challa when he puts on the soundproof shoes, and she's like, "You know what I call them? Sneakers." And then there's just kind of like a beat right there where she knows it was kind of corny and everything. Yeah. It was just great. Everett Ross. Martin Freeman, I thought, was pretty cool in this role. He was the Tolkien white guy alongside Andy Serkis.
Did you say Tolkien?
Yeah.
Like J.R.R. Tolkien?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a joke.
Okay, I was going to say, it's not that word, right? And then, okay. Yeah, I get you.
So it was Martin Freeman's character to play backup sidekick, intel guy, which he did well. It was weird because in the comics, Ross was a huge source of comic relief. Like, he was like the only source of comic relief in such a serious book as Black Panther. So I thought he would be funnier here, but he was more of like a comic foil than anything else.
Yeah.
But I think he did that well too. But when in a movie where you have so much comedic moments from other characters, I don't think you need to have him be as funny as well.
I thought he was kind of unnecessary.
A little bit.
I mean, like, typically you would think that a character like him, and what I got from the trailers was that he was going to be like a POV character. You learn about Wakanda through him, and you actually kind of didn't.
You didn't.
You already knew everything before him.
Right. It would have been cool to have him kind of discover it as the audience did. I do like his character, and I do want to see more of him. So let's talk about M'Baku. Winston Duke was a great scene stealer. I've never seen him in anything else. He was comedic relief as well. Do you think this is a funny film?
Not as funny as other Marvel films, but I actually liked it because of that. It didn't try so hard. Like, I really didn't like the comedy in Doctor Strange because I felt like it was like just trying too hard to like be like this specific Marvel product. But to me, this was not trying extremely hard to be that.
Yeah.
It's sort of its kind of own thing.
One of the things that this film did well that Doctor Strange did not do well was discard the genre's conventions, basically.
Yeah.
Like, you could compare Doctor Strange to a lot of other movies, but you can't compare Black Panther to as many.
Right.
So M'Baku, I would have preferred to have seen him more villainous as Black Panther's enemy Manape, but he served his role here pretty well as more of a T'Challa's rival than enemy.
Yeah. I liked him. I had a lot of respect for him, especially, when he didn't take the heart-shaped herb.
Yeah. That was an interesting twist.
He's a really, really good character. It confused me, though, because when he told Everett Ross to stop talking or he would feed him to his children, which was a hilarious line. I was like, oh, shit. Damn. And he said that they were vegetarians. Don't they eat the white gorilla meat?
They do. That's how they... Yeah. M'Baku, he eats the flesh of a white gorilla, which gives him his gorilla powers, basically.
Sort of like the heart-shaped herb, because both of them were affected by the vibranium meteorite.
The vibranium meteorite, yeah. All right, W'Kabi. I had a little bit of a problem with this character. In the comics, W'Kabi is such a loyal advisor to the throne. It was hard for me to see him betray T'Challa and wage war against the Dora Milaje. It just seemed out of character for me. But I mean, for those who aren't familiar with the comics, the traitor sympathizer is like a necessary component or perspective in this type of story. You want to see someone kind of fulfill that role kind of in the story like this. I thought that Daniel Kaluuya was a little bland here, which was disappointing because I thought he was so great in Get Out.
I haven't seen that. I need to.
It's great.
But I didn't think he was
bland.
Too one note here. No. It was a subtle performance, but I could see in his eyes like what he was feeling. He was emoting.
Well, he's an understated actor. He downplays a lot of his work.
He's soft spoken.
Kind of, very soft spoken. Yeah, and that might just be the type of actor that he is. But greater problem that I had was just how his character was, a traitor, when in the comics he's like second in command of Wakanda.
He's in charge of the border tribe?
Yeah.
Or was it like his father? Because he didn't speak during the ceremony.
He was the border tribe's greatest warrior.
Okay, yeah. So those rhinos were so badass.
Yeah. The border tribe was badass. They had those cool ass shields and everything like that.
Yeah, that was really cool.
And their cloaks. That was cool. There are a lot of characters in this movie, I just have to say.
Yeah.
A lot of like major roles. Huge cast list. And maybe that's why the character of Black Panther, T'Challa, maybe suffers the most because he has such a huge supporting cast here. He doesn't stand out as much.
You still have like his mom. You still have Zuri.
Yeah.
You still have,
That's who I was going to mention. Zuri and Ramonda, both played by veteran actors, Forrest Whitaker and Angela Bassett. I thought they really shined despite having pretty small roles,
Yeah.
They didn't stand out too much, but they didn't try to stand out too much. They just did well with what they were given.
Yeah.
So, let's break down the story.
Yeah.
So the history of Wakanda animation that opens the film. What did you think of that? It was like a minute long, 2 minutes long.
I was surprised.
It was lot of information.
How much of like word for word was almost like your description of Wakanda in last week's episode. It was like like almost line for line in some instances. I was like, holy shit. Joseph plagiarized his, even before he saw the movie.
They plagiarized me. I was really glad. I thought the same thing when he's going into the history of Wakanda. I was like, this sounds like the exact same words I used in our Black Panther versus Black Manta episode. So my main feeling was relief that I got it right.
It reminded me of Man of Steel. Man of Steel's like graphics were like ball bearing in a way, I guess. And this was more like dust or dirt, but it was still like silvery. It reminded me of that. I don't know. I thought it was cool.
I didn't even think about that. You're right. It did remind me a lot of that. I wonder if it was supposed to be like vibranium metal bearings or dust or something. I don't know.
I don't know.
It was cool.
It's cheating in a way. It's definitely cheating.
Do you think the information went by too quickly to process? Do you think some of that information could have been shown instead of told? I kind of feel that way.
Yeah, to a degree. I don't think I was lost.
No?
But I mean, I'd have to watch it again to see if there was anything I didn't pick
Well,
up.
because you already knew that story, so of course you were.
For the most part, yeah. But like you saw this with your wife. Was she lost?
I didn't ask her about that. She didn't seem to. Well, she listened to the episode too.
Oh,
I
damn it.
think anybody who listened to our Black Manta versus Black Panther episode couldn't have been lost during that whole scene.
No.
So I just need to speak to somebody who didn't. So yeah, a lot of information, but I like the animation that they did. It was kind of done in a cool style, just a little bit fast, I thought. And then the story goes to an interesting place that I didn't think that it would. It goes to Oakland in 1992.
Yeah.
It was interesting to see the film open in America. I wasn't expecting the movie to take place in America at all. So it kind of made me, turn my head quizzically for a minute just to see where they were going with this and how it tied into the story of Wakanda. But it was a cool scene. Like when Black Panther first shows up, Black Panther comes out of nowhere. Just like the whole mystery of the character. I thought they nailed that part right there. Mm-hmm. But even after they left, after Black Panther says you're going to report to your crimes against Wakanda for helping Claw steal this vibranium and stuff, it's not until later that we realize why Njobu helped Claw steal the vibranium, because he was trying to make weapons to arm those who he felt were oppressed. Mm-hmm. We don't learn that until later. It's kind of a confusing scene. We see the spaceship fly off and we see the kids like wonder like, oh, what is that in the sky? There's not a whole lot of context for what's going on in that scene, which I think would have been a little bit helpful. I was just kind of like lost between the rushed nature of the opening backstory and the whole kind of confusing lack of context scene later. It was a little bit of a bumpy start, but I think it rectified it pretty quick with the next scene.
It was bumpy, but I also think like it was intentionally so.
Yeah.
So I like by the end of the film, I appreciated that about it. I mean, the scene before is literal hand holding, but that scene they didn't try and hold your hand. I don't know. It's weird.
So after the Marvel logo, we see Black Panther post Civil War, like right after Civil War.
Yeah.
So I think this movie takes place around the same general time as Spider-Man: Homecoming, maybe a little bit before that. I think actually,
Black Marvel timeline is friggin' just I don't even follow it anymore. I don't. Not that I ever tried.
It all makes sense, man. You just have to be smart.
I definitely, to me, like it definitely sort of answered the question as to like whether the Black Panther was also the king, and it appears that based on this film, the Black Panther is just like the chief warrior of Wakanda.
Yeah, each tribe has its greatest warrior, and the head of the Panther tribe or the royal tribe is Black Panther. So it's not necessarily a kingly title like it is in the comics, where if you are the king, you are Black Panther. Mm-hmm. In this, it's a warrior title where you have the king of Wakanda, who is the head of the Panther tribe, and you also have the greatest warrior, who is the Black Panther. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was interesting. I really wasn't sure how they were going to do that, but I think they did that really well.
And smoothly.
Smoothly, definitely, for sure. So we have the Nakia rescue scene where he jumps out of his plane, out of his Talon fighter, and he throws the EMP devices onto the jeeps, and he rescues Nakia while she's on a mission.
I thought that scene was going to be a lot cooler than
it was mostly revealed in the trailer.
Yeah. Most of the action scenes in this film were revealed in the trailers, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
This early one, though, where the rescue scene, it was so hard to follow because everything was so dark.
And he was dark.
Yeah,
it was like it was brighter in the trailer, I remember.
Yeah.
I didn't have a problem seeing anything, and in this one, both times I saw the film, I had a little bit of trouble following exactly what was going on.
And not only that, though, it was also the editing. Like, it was hard to keep track of everything that was going on.
I did think that there was a part in that scene that was cool where Black Panther is shown up in the trees, and they all start shooting in that direction, and then next thing you know, he's jumping from the bushes behind them. Like, he's that quick and silent. And he slashes their turret gun and attacks the guy on the back of the pickup. Yeah. I thought that was a nice little, like, deceptive move. So they gather Nakia, head back to Wakanda. We meet Shuri and Ramonda. And then it goes pretty quick into the coronation ritual combat scene, which I freaking loved. I like the boat ride in and how, like, they activated, like, the waterfall
so they could stand on.
So they could stand on it. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Just seeing all the tribes there, seeing the different tribes. Like in the comics, there's like 18 or 13 or something different tribes of Wakanda. They narrowed it down to 5, and each one had like their own unique style. There was like the merchant tribe, which looked very like they had like scimitars and like those Arabic looking headbands, and it was like they each represented like almost different aspects of Africa itself.
Yeah.
Like you had the river tribe, which had the big lip discs thing, and that was what Nakia was part of. There was the border tribe, which Wakabi was a part of. There was the mining tribe, which they wore all red, and I guess they were in charge of, the miners and stuff. And then there was the Jabari tribe, which are the white gorillas, and I guess they don't attend this because they're kind of loners up in the mountains. But that whole scene I just loved. It was a great cultural scene. It was a great action scene.
It was not a great action scene.
You don't think it was a great action scene?
No.
Why?
Again, the editing, I think. I liked the idea of the ritual. The Wakandan culture in itself is just really fascinating, really cool.
Yeah.
And then like how even like his Delore Milaje and like the gorillas were like pointing their spears and forcing the two to fight.
Yeah, that was cool.
I thought that was interesting. Yeah. But like I wasn't impressed by the choreography.
One of my favorite aspects of this scene was going back to the ritual aspect of it, is how similar to the comics, how people could challenge the king for the throne, and becoming king was not a right, but something that you had to earn. And how they like would show the royal family respect by declaring that they weren't going to participate in the ritual. I thought that was just a really interesting aspect to that. Mm-hmm. So after the fight, T'Chaka gets the heart-shaped herb, and in what I think is the necropolis, it looked a lot like what I imagine the necropolis would be. It was like this stone kind of temple-looking structure, where the heart-shaped herb grew. And I bet you, since this is where the heart-shaped herb grew, I bet you it's near where the meteorite crashed. I would be willing to bet that the soul stone was actually in that meteorite. And the reason why Black Panther is able to go to the ancestral plane and communicate with his father is because probably somewhere underground where they are, the soul stone exists. Now, they did not address that in this film, which surprises me.
I was super surprised when we didn't get the soul stone in this film.
But I bet you we will discover that in the Infinity War film.
Well, we have to.
Yeah. We know that Thanos is coming to Wakanda, so it's just the fact that they didn't address it is kind of surprising.
Yeah.
Do you think it would have taken away from this film at all if they had revealed the Soul Stone?
Well, I was reading an article with Ryan Coogler explaining why they didn't introduce the Soul Stone, and he said he felt it was because the vibranium as a metal was like special enough that like they didn't want to have like two special like
MacGuffins
stones. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the vibranium and all of its properties and everything that it could do requires a great enough suspension of disbelief as to not, introduce another magical kind of seeming artifact.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Makes sense. So after he takes the heart-shaped herb and he talks to his father, I thought that was a great moment where he's like, I'm not ready to do this without you. And he gets the advice that, surround yourself with people you trust, and it's hard for a good man to be king, things like that. Killmonger and Claw in the following scene steal a vibranium axe from the British Museum.
And I was surprised we actually didn't get to them until this late.
Yeah. And then we don't really see much of Killmonger until about 30 minutes later too.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a great scene. I really thought Claw was hilarious in this when he was like, hey, we'll leave you alone. Just don't tell anybody, okay? And then he shot him to spread out the crime scene and stuff. So interestingly enough, this scene kind of proves that the Netflix shows are in the MCU.
What?
So, Killmonger's female partner, or lover or whatever, she's the one that poisons the lady who's explaining the artifacts to him. I was under the impression that was Nightshade, one of Luke Cage and Iron Fist's villain. And she's a specialty in poisons, and that's why I thought that was her character. And also she looks a lot like Nightshade. And it turns out that actually, I read into this a little bit because I was confused when I saw that she wasn't Nightshade. The actress, when she was cast and in the script for a while, she was Nightshade. But Marvel ended up making her change the character's name because they're going to use Nightshade in the upcoming season of Luke Cage Season 2. And so she couldn't die in this movie and also be in the Luke Cage Netflix show. So it just goes to show that Marvel Studios takes note of what's in the Netflix shows and that they are connected universes. Boom.
Nah, I don't buy it.
What do you mean you don't buy it? I just gave you proof. You're blind. You're just blind. You're just deliberately stubborn. That's proof right there. So I don't want to hear that from you again.
Jeez.
Nakia and Wakabi. Black Panther meets with both of them in the following scenes and has like nice little character moments where he talks to Nakia about, wanting to keep her in Wakanda, and she wants to get out there, and she's trying to convince T'Challa that Wakanda should stop being an isolationist country, then get out there and help other nations around the world, people in need, and bring in refugees and things like that. And he gets the opposite viewpoint from Wakabi. So he gets those two viewpoints in these
He's essentially border patrol, which makes sense.
Yeah, it's the whole conceit of the film, really, is this isolationism versus world unity kind of thing. Nakia is on the side of world unity, and Wakabi is on the side of isolationism. It was a nice little back-to-back scene. We get to see the rhinos for the first time. And that's when they get the message from Okoye that Claw has been discovered. So they have the whole debrief in the throne room, where you get to see like the council of elders from each of the tribes, and they try to figure out what they're going to do. And T'Challa determines that since a good first act as king would be to nail this guy that his father had failed to nab for about 30 years. So that leads us into the first big action set piece, which is the casino scene. I loved the casino scene. It felt a lot like James Bond, specifically Skyfall, the casino scene in that movie, which is very stylish and had some great moments, like when Claw pulled the vibranium axe head out of his pants and stuff like that. I like he's like, what are you guys about to drop a mixtape? And he's like, oh yeah, there is a mixtape. Send him, get him the SoundCloud link.
Yeah, they referenced SoundCloud. I thought that was great.
It was hilarious. The chase scene I thought was also pretty well done. I thought these were probably the greatest action scenes in the movie.
Yeah, Okoye, she totally killed it all of them did in the casino. And the casino thing was interesting to me too, just because casinos are actually illegal in Korea. Well, they're not illegal, but Koreans can't go into them because it's illegal for them to gamble.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it was pretty authentic in that, it
was underground.
It was this black market kind of thing. I thought that was cool. And then the chase scene has to be one of the coolest car chase scenes in superhero cinematic history.
It wasn't as good as the one in Winter Soldier, but it's probably the second best. I do like the nice little effects, like when Okoye threw the spear through the windows and
that was cool.
Embedded into the ground and stopped that car.
Yeah.
That was a pretty cool little moment.
I didn't think it was as good as the one in The Dark Knight either. But it's
Oh, yeah.
I think it was definitely the best, Black Panther set scene in the film.
It's a shame that every single one of the greatest action beats of this scene was spoiled in the trailer, and that includes when he released that a kinetic blast on top of the car, and he flipped onto the other one,
and he took out the tire,
and when he ran on the wall and took out the tire,
because that was the end of the fight.
Yeah,
that was the end of it. And then even in the trailer, you saw him when he was walking up to the car, approaching Claw.
Yeah, we always assume we've been lucky enough to see a lot of trailers not spoil anything too much. I think this is one of the cases where I kind of wish I didn't see a lot of the marketing material because it actually revealed more than I thought it did.
Yeah, so the trailers spoiled all the action scenes because and the film really didn't have too many action scenes. I think that's why they had to spoil them.
Yes. So Claw gets captured. He gets interrogated. I thought that was a great scene.
Yeah.
I love how Andy Serkis. Yeah.
Yeah. He was just all of it. I stole a small piece of it. He's so pissed off.
I like when he's like, "Baby, don't hurt me no more."
Yeah,
that was pretty good. So Killmonger captures Claw. He rescues him from interrogation. Everett Ross ends up getting wounded during the fight. He ends up getting a bullet in him. So they take Ross back to Wakanda to heal him.
Well, they put one of the Kimoyo beads in him.
Yeah.
I remember I've heard of Kimoyo cards.
Yes.
But are the beads special to the movie?
So Kimoyo cards are computer devices in the comics. They're small PDAs, small thin PDAs.
They were iPhones before iPhones
existed. We already have that kind of technology now. If they showed Kimoyo cards in the movie, it would be okay, so it's just a thinner iPhone. So they switched to Kimoyo beads. As far as I know, Kimoyo beads may make an appearance in the modern Black Panther comics, but in this, those beads were their computer devices. They were for tracking vitals. They were for communicating. They were for projecting holograms and stuff like that.
I thought it was weird when he stuck in his bullet wound. So I guess that was just the stabilization or the wound stabilizing Kimoyo bead.
Yeah. Apparently, they have multiple purposes, including some possible first aid.
I want a Kimoyo bead bracelet.
I know, me too.
That's some cool tech, and it's like unique tech. It would have been so easy to do like a more advanced iPhone.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool.
Like, who does beads as tech, Only Black Panther could do that.
Right.
So, pretty cool. So, Ross, he's taken over to Wakanda where he's healed by Shuri, and W'Kabi confronts them, wondering where Claw is, and T'Challa has to be honest with him and say he escaped our grasp, and that's when W'Kabi starts to turn, which is, again, out of character for me, I felt like, but I don't know. It seemed kind of like he turned on a dime. I don't know. He was very quick to be disappointed when it's like, dude, I mean, you don't know how hard it is to catch Claw. Like, we caught him, but he got captured and escaped. You can't blame us for that,
Yeah.
So that was kind of weird. It's right after that. It's the scene where Killmonger kills Claw in that small airport. That surprised me a lot. I was really disappointed because, again, like we said, Claw was such a great character, and to see him just die kind of, I think it leaves a hole in Black Panther's rogues gallery.
Yeah. It wasn't even like a good death either. It was kind of like, I mean, not that a scumbag like him deserves a good death, but it wasn't by the hero. It was just, I don't know, it just kind of happened.
Yeah, it was over and done with. It's around the same time that T'Challa confronts Zuri, since he saw that Claw's kidnapper or rescuer had the same ring that was on his hand. So he confronts Zuri to tell him exactly what's going on, and Zuri tells him essentially that T'Chaka killed his brother N'Jobu because N'Jobu was, trying to get Wakanda to take over the world, basically, and rule it.
Yeah.
Because he saw that a lot of the African Americans and people with the same skin color as him were being oppressed throughout the world.
I don't think that's why he killed him. I think he killed him because he was trying to kill a fellow Wakandan.
Yeah, he did commit crimes against the Wakandan people by having Claw break in, and a lot of people died during that Claw's invasion. But yeah, the thing that made him kill him was the fact that, I don't care how idealistic your view is. Why'd you have to pull a gun on Zuri?
Yeah. It's interesting. Like, T'Challa really didn't identify sort of with the plight of the African American slaves because he wasn't one. His people weren't slaves.
Right.
They weren't captured. So he had a really hard time, I feel like, identifying with all the hate and just kind of rage that Killmonger felt.
Yeah.
But for Killmonger's father, I thought it was kind of interesting how he adopted the plight of the people who looked like him. And I don't know if it was because he fell in love with an African American woman or his son was part African American, that he kind of sympathized with their cause. But I mean, the other Wakandans definitely didn't.
No, yeah, that's a little unfortunate. I think T'Challa realizes that, and his whole revelation through the film is that he needs to share Wakanda with the world and help out people who are less fortunate than they are.
Who is everyone?
Who is everyone? Yeah, pretty much. So that kind of throws a whole wrench in T'Challa's feelings about his father and the nation of Wakanda. But he doesn't get to deal with that too much before Killmonger comes along with Claw's dead body and, demands an audience with the king. And that was an interesting scene. Like, we knew at that time who Killmonger was and everything like that. And it's being revealed to the Wakandan elders. And
it was a serious moment. Like, it was a tense moment.
Yeah. And it was in that moment that you realize just how kind of like how not justified Killmonger's motivations are, but how his perspective is valid.
Is Killmonger's perspective valid? Because I've heard that. I've heard people on Twitter saying like Killmonger did nothing wrong, but like in a sense,
I'm not saying he did nothing wrong. I'm saying his perspective was valid.
I'm saying people are saying that.
Well, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying his perspective is not wrong. You're saying that other people are saying he did nothing wrong.
Right.
It seems like you're equating the two.
No, but I'm saying I didn't think that when I was watching the film. Like,
no, I don't.
When you're focused so much and you have that much hate, when your whole life is just based on the hate, it's like, yeah, you're doing something right. You're making wrong decisions. You're doing all these things. He was definitely a sympathetic character, but I don't think for some reason I found him as sympathetic as some other people have or have been reacting to it in that way. You understand his perspective. You're right. You definitely understand his perspective, but I don't know.
His perspective is valid, but what he chooses to do because of that perspective is not.
I kind of wish we sort of saw more of that perspective, because his perspective, I think, is really, he hates racism. He definitely seemingly It's more than just his father was killed. Like, he had a hard life. He comes across that way.
Yeah.
So, like, but you didn't see any of that. You saw his father die, and you heard him say about how hard his life was, but you didn't really see it.
Well, did you want a whole kind of like montage of his life?
And that's what I'm saying. You know, I think that would have been really hard to do. I think it would have been maybe in poor taste to even do that. Maybe. Mm-hmm. Maybe if because in the comics, Claw is racist.
Right.
So maybe if you saw some of that and just saw a little bit more of what Killmonger has to deal with, he would have been even more sympathetic, maybe.
Perhaps. I think if you need to find instances of the plight of the African American throughout history, you don't have to look far. So I don't think you necessarily need to see that because it's already so apparent.
In the society we live in. And actually, I mean, the film's doing great overseas as well.
So after this, we go to the challenge, the second waterfall fight. That was a super powerful, dramatic scene because we see T'Challa just absolutely annihilated. We see Zuri get murdered. Killmonger's anger is so palpable in this scene. And
yeah, it's definitely like it explains his motivation. Again, to me, he's Black Manta, you know?
Yeah, I think he's Killmonger. When he threw T'Challa off the waterfall, I thought that was one of the most powerful moments in recent memory coming from a superhero film, I think. It was just utterly devastating, and you saw a lot of that in the reactions of the supporting characters and everything like that. And it was interesting. I questioned where the story was going to go from there. I figured that he was going to come back. He was going to be okay. He was going to wash up somewhere. But I wasn't sure how or when or what Killmonger was going to do on the throne in the meantime.
Yeah, I didn't like the fact that, like, this character who was so intent on killing T'Challa, I knew he was going to survive that waterfall drop. Anytime anyone lands in water, it's like they don't die, at least in the movies, you know? So I kind of... It's like just, it's one of those things where like, why doesn't the villain just shoot them? Why does the villain just like...
Well, he had already stabbed him multiple times. Stabbed him in the leg, stabbed him in the arm, stabbed him in the stomach. You know, he was bleeding out pretty profusely.
But not the neck or the chest yet, you know? So he's not dead.
Apparently they don't think that they live in a comic book world, so... We get the scene where Killmonger becomes king, and you get that dramatic scene between Nakia and Okoye where they're arguing about who they should be loyal to. And
great scene.
Yeah, that was a great scene. Killmonger undergoes the heart-shaped herb ritual, and it was another powerfully fantastic scene when he talks with his father.
I'm so glad we got to see it.
Yeah, his father's like, I really want to take you back to Wakanda, but I don't think they'll ever let you go. And he's like, why? And he's like, they'll say you're lost. And he was like, well, maybe it's your country is the one that's lost and everything like that. Yeah. But, and you know, it was subtly emotional. Like there's a tear going down Killmonger's.
I don't think it was subtle at all. I think you could, yeah, exactly. You could see how emotional it was just from their tears that both of them were shedding.
And I think that is the moment in which he becomes super sympathetic, which is so weird because he just got done killing the main protagonist of the movie, allegedly. His perspective is validated, I think, in the throne room scene, but he becomes a sympathetic figure in that scene when you see exactly what's going on in his head and everything like that.
Yeah. And we go a while, like a surprising amount of time. Like I was surprised how long it took us to see T'Challa again. Like, yeah. You're definitely like on edge, like what's happening? What's going on?
Yeah. I mean, because Killmonger comes out of the ancestral plane and he orders all of the heart-shaped herbs to be burned, which I thought was like, oh no, shit.
So luckily, that's another thing where I thought like there's just some instances, things that Killmonger does that just seem really stupid. Throwing Black Panther into the waterfall was one of them, and then doing this. Like, does he not plan on having children?
Again, Killmonger doesn't know that he lives in a comic book universe. To him, he's killing T'Challa.
With the herbs, does he not plan on having children?
No, he doesn't plan on having any sort of rival. I think he assumes that they'll so utterly conquer the world by the time he has a successor, that person won't have to worry about needing the strength and the speed because his rule will be so complete. I shouldn't have to explain that stuff. It's not a stupid decision. It was. It wasn't a stupid decision. It was a devastating decision
for us. For him,
for the Wakandans,
it shows a lack of foresight.
No, he doesn't care that he's not going to have a successor with strength. He doesn't care about that.
Okay.
You're searching for flaws where there are none. Nakia and the group, they take the heart-shaped herb to the Japari tribe in an appeal to try to get M'Baku to lead his army and take the heart-shaped herb and fight against Killmonger. Because they know that the Jabari tribe, being the traditionalists that they are, will not appreciate this outsider coming and taking the throne. And they had the great moment where M'Baku repays his debt by taking them to T'Challa and showing that he's alive but in a coma. So they give him the herb and T'Challa comes back. It was a while before we saw him again, but it was nice to see him come back. And that's when we get the big fight at the end of the film. The first part of it being against the Border tribe, which I thought was a fantastic fight. There were some parts that were a little fake, like with the rhinos and stuff, but I thought it was a cool concept just to have them involved in that. Before that, we get the quick scene. I thought that was a pretty powerful moment too, where the camera's upside down. It was after
that was cool.
Killmonger set fire to the fields, and the camera's upside down, like and spinning as it goes onto the throne. And he sits down and he explains his plan about how the sun will never set on the Wakandan Empire because they're just going to take over all time zones, and
hemispheres.
Yeah, it sets up his whole plan about how they're going to send those sonic spears out to all the agents around the world so that they can arm the people and take over. So as those ships are going out, T'Challa shoots one down and he has a great reveal when he's crawling out of the wreckage. The final fight in the mine was cool visually, like in terms of like the colors and stuff like that. I think there was a bit of a problem when it comes to the heavy CGI action or like the CGI costumes. I don't think CGI costumes lend themselves to action very well because like it's almost like the Green Lantern effect where you don't buy anything that's going on. And you know, this fight scene may have been real when it was filmed, but like you could tell that it was done in post. A lot of it was done in post,
green
basically.
Screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have as much problem when it came to like them wearing their suits. I didn't have as much problem as I think other people were having with that. I don't know if they were wearing green screen suits because you could see like their skin underneath. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure how that was done, but
the glowing was definitely CGI. You know, I think that added a touch of uncanny valleyness to their movements or something. Maybe I don't know. But what really saved the scene was their dialogue. I think.
Yeah.
When Killmonger's like, you know, everything was taken from me. These people deserve this, and he was like, you're becoming the people you hate then by becoming the oppressor.
Right.
Then we have the Killmonger's death scene. He explains to T'Challa that he, you know, was maybe a fool for ever thinking that his father would ever get to take him to Wakanda to see like the beautiful sunsets there. It was just they had like a nice little moment where they're bitter enemies and they're trying to kill each other. But there's almost like a mutual respect after that death blow was applied where they're just kind of sitting there.
He knew it was over.
Yeah, they both knew it was over.
Done. And they were just being like, they were being real with each other, you know?
Yeah. And he took him out onto the cliff and they saw the sunrise and he was like, it is beautiful. Such one of the, I think it might be the best villain death scene ever. And it was just accompanied by the great dialogue where he's like, I think we could fix you. And he's like, why? So you could just put me in a cell for the rest of my life? He was like, how about you just bury me in the ocean along with my ancestors who knew that death was better than bondage. And then he kind of commits suicide by pulling out the spear that's in his chest. Yeah. Not commit suicide because he was already dying, but, you know, just hurries the process along, which I thought was
so final.
So final. Like,
maybe not in Wakanda, but definitely, you know, it was just a great moment.
Yeah, definitely. So after that, we see that Wakanda takes his place back on the throne. It looks like M'Baku has taken W'Kabi's spot on the council, and they go to Oakland, and T'Challa reveals that he's going to start Wakandan outreach centers all over the world, but starting at the place where Killmonger was born, kind of. It just kind of makes you wish that somebody would actually do that.
Like Wakanda was real.
Like Wakanda was real, that someone would take that much active interest in communities in need, you know?
That scene felt to me, the scene when they're in the basketball court, I have the feeling that was a reshoot.
You think?
I have the feeling that the original ending was supposed to be the UN embassy. But then they were like, let's make this a little bit more personal. Let's make this, a little bit. Let's get some kids in there, some fans of the character, and really because they have the same ending. In a way.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they shot one and were like, let's make this a little bit more closer to home. Mm-hmm. It was a good scene. It was a really good scene, and I'm glad they did it.
That's a decent hunch. I don't know if it's true, but the fact that they both had the same kind of beats, I wouldn't be surprised if it was true. I guess we'll never know.
I just feel like I was kind of surprised that he's revealing himself. In a way, it's kind of nice that he's revealing himself to the black people of Oakland before to the world. But I kind of feel like almost that almost should have been the opposite way around in a sense as a king maybe. But I feel like they felt like maybe that's wrong. Let's start with the black people of Oakland and then go to the UN.
Yeah. The UN scene was fine as a mid-credits scene. It kind of rehashed like what you just said, but it was inspirational. It kind of made you walking away feeling like you should do what you can to kind of help the world as best you can.
The whole film itself was well, I shouldn't say the whole film. At the end of the film, it was anti-tribalism, which was fantastic, especially for a film from Africa. Because I don't want to say like racism doesn't exist in Africa, but like in place of race, they find other ways to discriminate against each other, and that's tribes, right? So, you have hierarchies of tribes, and tribes are always fighting for power and stuff like that. So for an anti-tribalism film, not that this film came out of Africa, but like around Africa to come out, I think that's what makes this film important, is that it's a strong message for the entire world, like right now. I think that's what makes it special. Yeah. But like we're all tribal. Like we're Democrats versus Republicans, and stuff like that. Even in our own country, rural farmers versus, like city dwellers, and it's all like, it's a call to unity.
Yeah. I think, and it's perfectly summed up in that UN speech, I think.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
The conceit of the film.
And I think, I feel like that was always in the script. I feel like that's the thesis of the film.
Yeah, which is lofty, but inspiring. I think it came at the right moment.
Yeah,
I'm glad it came out when it did. The after credits scene was with the Winter Soldier, and he's coming out of a hut, and basically he's cured of his brainwashing, and he thanks Shuri. Interestingly enough, the children call him White Wolf, who is not a Black Panther villain necessarily, but the White Wolf is the leader of the clandestine Black Ops group of the Wakandans, and they're led by T'Challa's stepbrother, who is a white man who was adopted by T'Chaka, and he leads the White Wolves. And
oh, really?
I don't know if they're going to turn Bucky into the leader of the White Wolves, and that's why he was called that. Not sure what that reference meant. It was a little off because in the comics, White Wolf he looks kind of like Clark Gables, kind of like from Gone with the Wind,
with like a pencil mustache.
Yeah. He's that kind of looking dude. So he doesn't look anything like the White Wolf, but if Bucky has nothing else to do, sure, give him the Wakandan Black Ops team.
Isn't he supposed to be Captain America? Like
we don't know if Captain America is going to die in Infinity War. A lot of people said Captain America was going to die in Civil War. Like a lot of people really want Captain America to die, but I don't know if it'll happen.
I'd be surprised if he stick around after Infinity War.
Bucky?
No. Steve Rogers.
Oh, Steve Rogers? Oh, yeah, I would agree with that. After Avengers Part 4.
Yeah. This is just me speculating, but I'm under the assumption. I wouldn't be surprised if Captain Steve Rogers died and Bucky took up the Captain America role.
I don't think he'll die. I think
maybe Falcon would. Maybe Bucky becomes White Wolf. I didn't know that about White Wolf. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And Falcon becomes Captain America. I don't know. Who
knows? Possibly. We'll see.
Different routes for them to go.
Yeah. All right. I think that does it for this review. I gave it 4.5 stars. What do you think?
I didn't like it enough, and that may be my own personal bias. I just think that I don't think it was 4.5 stars. I think it was 4 stars.
Because of the action?
Because of the action, and because, and I said earlier that this wasn't really a detriment. It wasn't really, because the movie was good, but like the main protagonist, when the main protagonist is sort of like the least interesting character, then I don't know. It was a good film. I really liked it.
I guess a good counterpoint to the action issue is that I personally didn't think that the film was lacking in action, and I also think that as opposed to the story serving the action set pieces, it was more the action servicing the great story. So I didn't have a problem with the action.
You know what?
I would agree with the main character being the least compelling character in the film, though.
You know what I wanted? I wanted more. Like, I would have loved if this was like a 3-hour movie.
Really?
You know? If we could have just gotten more.
One more, like, scene of Black Panther kicking ass in costume?
Well, not even necessarily that, because, I'll take story over action any day of the week. But yeah, one more scene with Killmonger, develop him more. Because, he was a sympathetic villain, but does that mean he was well developed? Does that mean, I'm not sure. I think you could have gotten more from him, even more. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
It was a film that was spread out pretty far among a lot of characters.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'd agree with that.
But we're giving it 4.5 stars.
Yes. Yep, 4.5 stars. Go ahead and write in to us what you guys thought of the film. We always like discussing that with you guys. Go ahead and email us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com or reach out to us on social media. Let us know what you thought of the film. That does it for this episode. In the next episode, the last episode of February, we're going to do a duel matchup. It's going to be Black Lightning, who recently just got his own show on the CW, against Storm, who is one of the X-Men. You all know who Storm is. So it's going to be a great fight.
Yeah, the two aren't they don't have identical power sets, but they're comparable, I think.
Yeah.
So
we'll talk about that next week. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. And go ahead and tell your friends about us. And go ahead and check out dynamicduel.com to get a link to our merch site, where we sell lots of badass T-shirts, but not just T-shirts, like mugs and notebooks and stickers and things like that.
Yeah.
And they're all original designs by Jonathan and myself, and we think they're cool.
I think they're cool. I own several of the shirts.
Yeah, so check them out, definitely. All right, we'll talk to you guys in a week.
Yep. Up and away.
True believers.